Hello and welcome to another special video edition of Andrew's Philosophy-Cast, where it's going to be myself and my really good friend George Bull. And what we're going to be talking about today is we are going. It's been a. I know these are funny times. I know these are strange times, but we're going to talk about an issue that's really important in my life and really important for George to argue about us today. We're going to give you a philosophical and ethical and economic sort of discourse on the, touch wood, hopefully forthcoming takeover of Newcastle United. Just before we get started, we just want to say a shout out to Pete Graves, who we went to school with. Maybe you will pick up on this and perhaps bring us a little bit of clicks.
Yeah.
So
Pete Graves needs this takeover to go through more than most, doesn't he?
I know his reputation is staked on this.
Poor guy. He's had some turmoil. Bloody people. He's seen as the scapegoat for everything. It's unbelievable the stuff he gets.
People tend to ask him for news, and whenever he gives them news, he just gets slated for stirring the pot.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, absolutely impossible position. Anyway.
Sorry, Pete. Right. So I just want to get my viewpoints on this out of the way first. I'm quite looking forward to this takeover. It takes place if it goes forward. From purely a selfish viewpoint of it'll be nice to sort of be excited to go to the match again. But I'm going to give you a little sort of philosophical takedown on that. I'm going to go along with Hegel master-slave dialectic with this in terms of my whole thing with Mike Ashley, with Newcastle and everything like that, is that realistically all the times are as good and as bad as each other. You always get this sort of honeymoon period with every new owner where everyone's really, really excited. Then your relationship sort of changes from the slave. It'll gradually overtake to become the master. You're overtaken by him and you start to see him as a bad thing and you won't change. My whole argument from being a Newcastle fan is that every sort of chairman starts off as being flavour of the month, like Mike Ashley drinking with the fans, McKeague promising these signings, John Hall. By the end of it, they're always the villain and you always want rid of them. Everybody stays until they've outlasted their welcome. It's like the Batman thing. You either die a hero, you live long enough to see yourself become the villain. So for me, my whole take on the furores surrounding the takeover is that it's a good thing, but in 30 years, 30, 40 years time, 20 years time, these people, whatever their intentions, whatever their economic capitalist intentions are, will be viewed as bad things. And that, for me, echoes kind of the nature of capitalism as well. So we're going to go a little bit with Marxism with that. George?
So is your argument a little bit like you might have been watching the Dallas Cowboys and the New York Yankees, the entertainers, but through the bad times for Ashley, the fans in the club have found themselves a sort of deeper meaning, the true sort of stripping all the way, so the tragedy becomes a success in a way.
I don't know. Maybe you view. My point is that they're all the same, but it's only the way that you let them affect you. So it's like a stoic sort of thing with it. They're all as bad as each other. They're all as good as each other. It's basically how you let them affect you.
Yeah. I think that is a very interesting start. I think what's squarely being asked in the media is, from my point of view, I'm trying to strip it. It's similar to the last podcast, trying to not go into the nitpicking thing, trying to zone out a little bit. The question that's being asked is it moral, is it ethical for Saudi Arabia, the government, the head of the country,
sovereign state,
yeah, to invest in Newcastle? I think to strip it back, this is primarily, it's an economic choice. It's a game of capitalism that we're in.
I love that, George. I love that. It's the game of capitalism.
Yeah. You can't. We're not. It's not a question of. We're not. No one's getting married here. It's not a one-to-one decision. It's the game of buying businesses. This could be Nissan. This could be Asda. It's capitalism. I think. Well, Newcastle classically say they're more than a club, all this in the meaning of the area. But fundamentally, the decision that's being made is one of capitalism. And really, the first question is, have you got the money? And the answer is definitely yes. then we're getting this slippery territory of who has to make this, in inverted commas, moral decision. Well, it would be, and correct us if I'm wrong, from what I've read, it's the Premier League, and then Parliament could have some say over that.
So is it this idea, kind of like, if we're getting back to the ethics of this, so the question is really, is it the right thing for Saudi Arabia's sovereign nation to buy Newcastle United? George seems to be saying that it's a capitalist game. Is your issue there with capitalism? And if there's a regulatory board for capitalism, well, the first thing is it's like the regulatory board of the Football League, so it's the Premier League, and then ultimately the government themselves. So do the government get involved in many business decisions? Is this like something that you need to...
Well, exactly, that's what I was saying. I think monopolies, these things, or when it's illegal, but we've got one of the biggest stock markets in the world, the FTSE 100. The sovereign wealth fund could invest at any single point, buy as much as it bloody wants of any of our companies. That's the game we're in. It's a practical point rather than an ethical point. I'm just saying money can flow in the game of capitalism almost without impediment.
So sort of legally, like, it's not really an issue. So you could sort of say that, like, the legal thing is that it would be a strange decision for the government and for the Premier League to block a decision there. So the question is, like, it's an ethical one. Is it the right thing to do? And we'll phrase this like I said, is it right that a sovereign nation are buying into the people's game? Is that?
Yeah. Now, I think moving to the next point, and I don't know what you think of this, the fans of Newcastle are only responsible for what happens for their club here, sort of thing. They can, from what they see, that's what the club's doing. Do you see what I mean? That's where their viewpoint ends and starts. Would you agree so far?
Yeah, so like, from a Newcastle fan's perspective, here in the Northeast, that's all you're really bothered about. But we don't see them as like a global thing.
Not so much people watching in America fans here. I just mean, like, say they sack the groundsman, say they cut the wages of this. I think the Newcastle fans would be up in arms in protest that they put the season ticket prices up. If they make a decision that relates directly to the club, I think they can have a viewpoint on that. I think to ask Newcastle fans to have a view on wars through time, civil rights of a certain country is categorically the wrong. You can't put that on people.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I think that's right. You can't apply like you can't. It doesn't go both ways. It just goes from big to small rather than from small to big. Yeah, you're right.
I would say so. And another point, slightly different point, is, do you think there's any mileage in the argument of well, it's like North Korea? If we cut them off altogether, are they going to get any better, or are they just going to become more insane, more insular? So as Saudi Arabia obviously had the boxing and other things, will this inevitably lead them to be a more, well, it's completely, as we talk in the other podcast, just the Western view of civilization, our values put on them. They're doing, you see what I mean? They're doing well when they accept our values, and there's women's football teams and all that, which apparently they have got now, women's football teams. Do you see the point I'm making, Andrew?
I just like it's almost like the ethics of sort of economics you're talking about there. Like, in some ways, you've got to say that any sort of interaction between cultures is got to be a positive thing as long as it's not violent. So any sort of mutual trade between cultures, like economically, and you'll be able to speak with a lot more authority than me than this, George, but any sort of business deal is good in some ways.
Yeah, I would agree. I can't think how it'll be a backwards. I can't see how this decision in and of itself won't be a force for some good, some sharing information. It's like, I'm going back to boxing. A lot of people that would never ever dream of going to boxing was in Saudi Arabia. I'm not.
Yeah, it was. Wasn't the driving license thing in Saudi Arabia just like a week before, so women were allowed to drive.
Yeah,
like
this is a time when everything's opening up, and I think we've got to be optimistic. If we crush everything down, how is that progressive? Because the royal family of Saudi Arabia are not going to go away. So
no, should they?
So if there's this open dialogue, has to be a positive thing. I mean, I really believe that the Newcastle fans, the fans in the North East, if there is something that, again, in the running of the club, they find morally reprehensible, they'll be the first to shout out and argue against that. I don't think they would accept. I know you have the point, you could have a terrible owner, if they're winning, no one cares, sort of thing. I remember you saying that before.
We'll try you with that, George. George, big Sunderland fan. How do you feel if they bought Sunderland? Positive or negative?
I would use the same arguments I've just used, I suppose. I think there's a sort of a spotlight comes upon it, really. Does anyone really want to be in the spotlight talking about these things? Fundamentally, it's the equation of sports entertainment. I know people hate that phrase, but who doesn't want to watch? Fundamentally, I can't remember who said it. You pay money to see someone do something you can't do, to see a footballer do an action, skill under pressure, that you can't do yourself, or you can never imagine you can do that. That's what you want to see. You don't want to see maybe some of the things that my clubs performed over the years, contract football passing. But you see the point I'm making.
Yeah, I get you. That's what what was it? Who said football, the working man's ballet? It's the time for you to see something beautiful in a time of sort of drudgery and things like that. It's escapism. It is entertainment. Got to say what it is. It's not a necessity, is it?
Yeah. Well, what do you think of the point of, as there's more, if the Premier League becomes entirely foreign owned, is it our Premier League anymore? So that this thing that Newcastle is very Tyneside centric, but equally the only future for any club now is global. Like I said, the Dallas Cowboys, New York Yankees, that you gain and lose at the same time. So if you want to compete, you have to lose yourself. Do you see what I mean? It's a deal with the devil in a sense.
I think it's a really interesting point that you make with that, George, and I think that's the ethics of it. So, and I find it's a really sort of interesting kind of juxtaposition that you get. So, as a Newcastle fan myself, I'd be really, really pleased with this to go through. I don't really think that the ethics or perceived rights and wrongs of Saudi Arabia as a sovereign nation, I don't think it really comes into it. However, you get this thing, and you've brought up these Dallas Cowboys, yada, 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 these sort of franchise teams. So what I would be interested in, and like I said at the start, that every new owner comes in and is positive and then all in sort of baddies. I think kind of as a Newcastle fan, if they're going to spend all this money on Newcastle, I don't know, that's by the by. As a Newcastle fan in this area, how do you think it would be perceived if they moved the team to Gateshead, or they moved the team to Durham, or they moved the team to Manchester, or they trained in London, which is one of these big ideas that you get, which is entirely
or they play 5 matches in the desert.
Play 5 matches in the desert. Like
if they've not thought of that idea, they could steal it off our podcast right now.
Well, I'd like a percentage. But you see, that's the kind of thing which realistically are ethically neither here nor there compared to human rights abuses or whatever like that. But that would be the sort of thing that would stick in people's craw, wouldn't it?
Yeah. Because it's the ownership of a team is entirely fixed in this locality, isn't it? In one sense, I know clubs have moved. I agree, especially mentioning the American one. But then we're getting a sticky wicket that, anyway.
Bonds, that sort of thing.
But what else is it? So Jerry Seinfeld thing. What is it other than the colour of the shirts? Really, change the manager, change the stadium, change the tops, change the name, change everything.
Interesting, isn't it? Interesting. We'll see. It probably won't go through now, Probably won't go through anyway. This will be entirely wasted.
Look at the other way. This is green lighting it right now. This is chasing Richard Keys, changing Amnesty International. They're going to watch this and think, well, they say it's okay. But just to recap, I think the points we're making here is Andrew's got a point about there's always going to be this roller coaster ride with the owners, and that's part of the experience of being a football fan. I've made the point that be careful not to make the categorical error here. It is the game we're in is capitalism. It's not the Catholic Church looking to invest in. It's the Premier League and government that we're in an open capitalist society. They could buy any company, the FTSE's trading. Newcastle United is no different. And then about it, the zone of concern for Newcastle United fans is what happens to the team here. the people employed in Tyneside, they can't be responsible for the rest of the world. They shouldn't be asked to make those sort of decisions. That's not correct. And openness has to be positive, has to be a positive thing.
Yeah, I think that recaps it. So, George, just a quick question to finish this off. Obviously, we've been doing these podcasts, and who was it that recently retweeted the last video?
Oh yeah, they're doing a school of science on Twitter, forming a select committee about information sharing and the quality of stuff online, and they were asking for examples of sort of harmful information being shared about the virus and things like that. And we've had a bit of a retweet, so a bit of a success for us. So I'm sure we're going to get a lot of retweets about our thoughts, the moral side. Because Sky Sports, I'm going to do half an hour on the on the master-slave dialectic. Are they really? Well, who knows? Maybe they will.
Maybe the interesting one here, George, is has this discussion cheapened us, or have we enriched the world of football and ethics?
Maybe if they give me honorary season ticket, I could leave it open as a protest. Every seat.
Right, okay. Do you think that'll do for today?
That'll do. Thank you, guys.
Right, bye. Stay safe. Bye-bye.
Bye.